Hello and welcome to the Sales Acceleration University webinar series by InsideSales.com. The aim of the webinar series is to help businesses sell smarter, sell faster, and to sell more. Today, as a part of the focus on hiring and retention, we will look at how to build a top-performing sales team. Please use the hashtag InsideSalesWebinar to join the conversation on Twitter. I'm delighted to say that we have Sophie Foster with us today. Sophie is the European Sales Director at InsideSalesPeople.com and was previously the Sales Director at Vanti International and WWE Entertainment. Both Sophie and I are on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to connect with you. So you can also connect with me on Twitter at AlexJCliff. So should you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them in the box provided, and we'll get to them at the end of the session in the Q&A section. So just a quick look at the agenda before we get going. I'll start off by giving you an overview of the changes in the sales workforce and what this means for organizations. Then Sophie will give you the best practices for hiring the right people, and then I will jump back in and have a look at how you can retain the people that you do hire in order to keep the best talent within your organization. Then we'll have a quick summary, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. Right, let's jump straight in with the changes in the sales workforce. So at the end of each year, Inside Sales teams up with the AAISP, which is a membership organization for inside sales professionals, to gauge the state of the industry and to specifically look at the biggest challenges they're seeing, the types of technology they use or want to use, compensation, plus many other areas of their daily lives and challenges that they face. But one of the most interesting parts of the survey is the top challenges for leaders. As you can see on your screen now, we've pulled out the top 14 challenges identified by the sales leaders. And as you can notice, quite a lot of them are actually HR related or something to do with people, which is no real great surprise, but one of the things I really want to pull out for you here is the recruiting and hiring being in the top 3 consistently over the last 3 years. And so we can see it's a really big issue for sales leaders. But one of the things that we should kind of really notice is that these aren't issues in isolation. A lot of these will be intertwined, so tools may be well related to other aspects of this, such as the recruiting and hiring, and indeed the training and development may be interlinked with other things as well. So, but we're going to pick out some of these intertwining factors throughout the rest of the webinar. But I guess the real question is now is, well, what can sales leaders do to build a top-performing sales team and kind of really kind of move that out of the top 3 challenges they see? So in order to understand the challenges sales leaders are seeing, we need to understand the trends in the workforce first. Over the last 3 to 4 years, millennials have actually leapfrogged baby boomers and Generation X to become the highest proportion of the workforce. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because that's just naturally what will happen. But what may surprise businesses and sales leaders is the subtle shift in expectations and behaviors from the new generation. So let's have a look at millennials in a little bit more depth. So they're born between 1980 and 2000, which is why they're entering the workforce in such great numbers now. And they're currently 34% of the global workforce, which is validated by a previous graph. But by 2020, which is only a few years away, they will make up half the entire global workforce. But why does this matter? According to a recent PwC report entitled Millennials at Work, attracting and keeping young workers is a CEO's biggest challenge. And actually this is validated from the other perspective, from millennials' point of view, by a Deloitte report which says that 25% of millennials surveyed said that they are planning to leave their current job within a year. And that figure actually goes up to 44% who said they will leave within 2 years. Now, this shift in loyalty and the scale at which it could occur will pose a big problem for businesses and managers. And we'll have a look a little bit more depth in that next. So let's have a look at this in the specific context of sales. This can have a huge impact. So first of all, just the time and resource that you need to spend on finding the right candidates, right the way from producing the job spec, right the way through to interviewing, and under those different aspects of recruiting. It really does take a lot of time and effort to find the right salesperson, especially in some of the more specialized roles. So that is going to be a huge impact if the turnover starts happening at the scale at which the data suggests. Then you also have the loss of potential revenue and the ability of a business to hit its quota and its sales number. Because for every month you have an open headcount, that's lost revenues for you as a company, and potentially that's going to your customers. But also, once you've hired someone, there's also going to be a period of time where they're ramping up. So for some companies it's 6 months, for some companies it's longer, but for every month that they're not on full ramp, that's again lost revenue. And so 71% of companies will take 6 months or longer to onboard new sales reps, while a third of all companies will take 9 months or more, again impacting revenue. And finally, it actually does just cost money for a business to recruit and train new staff. And so that can be anywhere between 30 and 200% of their annual salary, depending on the role and depending on how specialized it is. It's an expensive business, finding new staff and getting them up to the point where they're fully ramped. So what can you do about it? I'd like to hand over to Sophie Foster from Inside Salespeople to cover off the best practices for hiring the right people. Sophie.
Thanks for that, Alex. And now I'm going to talk about how you're going to hire those right people. My name's Foster. I'm European Sales Director for InsideSalespeople.com. So let's talk about the key points of successful recruiting. I'm going to run through these in real specifics over the next few minutes, but we need a company website, how that looks, how it's going to attract the right kind of people. The job description, how you can really engage them, because this is the first thing they're going to really learn about what's going to be expected of them. Compensation package. Now, salespeople are very much driven by compensation, so you need to ensure that this is in line with industry and candidate expectation. The importance of internal referral, something that is really important, utilizing your people's networks to ensure that you can attract the right kind of people. And then we're going to talk about interview experience and how you need to make that both swift and successful. And the employment of human analytics to scientifically identify the right people for your business and for the roles that you need to fill. Speed to hire, so making sure you get the right candidates in as quickly as possible before anybody else can take them off your hands. And finally, how you can engage the use of experts to make sure that you're getting the right people. They have the industry knowledge and experience and network, so utilize them. So firstly, one of the things that people are going to visit immediately when hearing of your company and a potential role there is the company website. So it's really important to have a Join Us page, a career page, a place where you can tell a story, a compelling story of why these candidates should join your company. So tell them a little about the history of the organization, how you were set up. Talk about what's going on now. Obviously, the product is extremely important, but also tell more about the culture and the opportunities and maybe the location. So include testimonials. It's important to really highlight the culture of the company. For example, InsideSales.com, on their Join Us page, they have information about how they dedicate 1% of their employee time, 1% of their company revenue, and 1% of their product to charity. So it's really important they're showing their culture, and that is something that's very attractive to people that are looking for a new opportunity. Use videos, use photographs to show the team and show the office, maybe show company days or friends and family barbecues that may take place, but really give them an idea of what happens within the workplace and outside the workplace organisation, engage those candidates and offer insight into what it'd be like to work for your company and your organisation. So onto the job spec. Again, very important to give the candidate an idea of what's expected of them and of the organisation. Make sure that you develop a clear and well-written job description. You've got to make sure that you're working with both HR and the hiring manager. HR will have written a lot of job descriptions in their time, but the hiring manager knows exactly what they're looking for. So the two have to be engaged to ensure that it is right on the money in terms of explaining what's expected of the candidates. Talk about the company culture, the organisation's value proposition. Talk about the opportunities that are available for somebody coming on board, so potentially achievements of existing employees, so you can say where they can expect to go in 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, and talk about what you can offer rather than what you need. It's really important to not be too specific and drag in the nitty-gritty. Prioritise the skill sets, don't use jargon. As it says here, it should inspire and excite the candidate. You don't want them to feel limited or feel like what you're describing the role to be extinguish their initiative or stop them from being able to go above and beyond that. You want people that are really going to excel, so maybe able to bring something that isn't listed on that job spec to the role. Then, again, very, very important, as I said previously, specifically to salespeople, but a compensation package. We are in a very candidate-driven market at the moment. We've returned to pre-downturn levels of employment. So there are candidates out there that can really pick and choose where they want to go. You need to benchmark what the compensation package. So engage friendly contacts who maybe work in competitors, clients, and talk with your team. Really do some investigation into job advertisements and find out what people are paying within your industry and make sure that you can benchmark against that. Sometimes in this particular marketplace, it's important to incentivize. So you may have to offer financial incentives for the right candidates to move from their current role. So make sure there is some ability to move that package according to the expertise that you may be able to engage. Flexibility is extremely important to millennials. Work-life balance, so being able to maybe work a day from home or come into the office earlier and leave earlier, or come in later and leave later. But flexibility is something that is coming up more and more with new roles. As I've said already, and I'm going to keep repeating throughout this presentation, promote your exceptional culture and the opportunities within the organisation, the career path that they will be able to forge within your organisation. And finally, in terms of compensation package, if you can't compete with your competitors on salary or on the package, be creative. Perhaps look at bringing somebody in from another industry sector that doesn't pay quite as well as your sector, or recruit someone at the level below who's ready to take that step up and is really, really hungry. But one thing that you need to be aware of is that these scenarios can require greater support in their induction, their training. So their learning curve and ability to bring in money for the organisation may be slowed down. It may be a longer time before they are really hitting those targets. But if you haven't got the money to put forward or the package, then it is something that you can think about. Internal referral. Now, this is something that is very important. We should really, really utilize people within the business to refer friends, potentially people that they've worked with at a previous role. Success doesn't rely on the prize associated with the referral, but rather than remind your employees all the time that there is a referral reward scheme. Make sure that you shout about those referral hires. So that they realise it's not an urban or corporate myth. They can benefit from referring a friend or a colleague. But what's really important to remember is that an employee will not refer a friend or a colleague or someone within their network just because of the cash reward. They really will have to have belief in the opportunity that exists for those friends or colleagues once they've joined your organisation. Again, it's the same thing that I've been repeating, but culture and opportunity are really, really important to make sure that you're going to be getting the right people on these internal referrals. And now we're on to the interview process, possibly one of the most important things in making sure you're engaging the candidates and you're getting the right people into the roles that you have open. It's very, very important that you manage the process and ensure that everybody is on point. So right from the get-go, make sure you've decided who's going to be involved in the interviewing process. Ensure that they complement one another. So you may want one character who's very enthusiastic for both, coupled with someone who's perhaps a little more detail focused. Not so much a good cop, bad cop, but make sure that they're looking at things from different perspectives. You need to strike a balance as well between assessing the candidate and taking good notes and asking questions, but also making sure that you're marketing your business and the role to that candidate as well, and that they have the opportunities to ask you the questions that they need to ask. So from the start, what is really important and what all businesses need to think about is the greeting that a potential employee gets from the minute they step in the door. So brief the guys at the security gate or the guys on reception to make sure that the first impression that a candidate has is a welcoming one. You have to sell your organisation to candidates as well as them selling their expertise to you. Make sure you're prepared. Before the interview, all the interviewers should really read the candidate's CV and take on board, if you have one, the candidate summary report that will have been provided by your search partner or recruitment agency. It's important to know the aspirations and the key drives of the candidate, and also understand what experience they had and really show that you've taken on board everything that they've put in their CV and that you're engaged in them. Also, make sure that you tailor the conversation to the candidate. There does need to be an element of standardization to interviews, but you don't want it just to be a cookie-cutter interview. There needs to be fairness and consistency, but don't be afraid to explore the uniqueness of each candidate and what they can offer. It sounds like a very, very obvious thing, but ensure that you're punctual for an interview, and if you can't be, don't leave a candidate waiting. It really creates a negative impression. So if you're running late, just get a colleague to pop in and speak to them for 5-10 minutes before you arrive. It may help to relax them, and they can give them a small briefing on the role and the company whilst they're waiting. When you finally do arrive, make sure the interviews are a two-way street. The best candidates will have options. They'll have been interviewed places, no doubt. And they'll know that they have something to offer that is really enticing. So make sure that you are engaging with them. Don't let anything come across as stilted. So you do need to have some competency-based questions, but it shouldn't all be about that. You need to build rapport. Also, panel interviews are not often a great idea. 3-4 interviewers can be somewhat intimidating and stop the flow of the interview. So perhaps think about 1 or 2, as I've said before, who can ask the right questions and they can talk between them and really get an idea of what the candidate can bring to the table. You don't want to be firing questions at the candidate constantly. You don't want them walking out of the interview room going, oh my goodness, I survived the onslaught. You want to present the company and yourselves in the best possible light. If there's multiple interview stages, make sure that the candidates aren't answering the same questions over and over again. A bit of question overlap is fine, but constantly repeating the same question is draining for yourselves and for those that are being interviewed. So make sure that you assign roles to the interviewers and map out who's going to ask what. Planning is really, really key. You really want to show them how great your organisation is and give them the opportunity to show how great they are and what they can bring to you. And remember, whether or not this person is offered the job, they are going to talk about the experience that they had within the interview. So they may talk to friends, they may speak to colleagues, they may even go to an interview with a competitor, and they will talk about what happened in the interview with you. Make sure that you paint a really good picture of your organisation. One of the key things that we use at InsideSalespeople.com with our clients is human analytics. They really, really, really are key to identifying the best people for your business. So we personally use PI and PLI, which are personality index and personal learning indicator. So identifying personality types and key drivers, identifying the intelligence of a potential candidate. So with the personality assessment, we ask our hiring managers to complete an assessment themselves on what they would expect from an individual coming in the team, what their key drivers are, key personality traits. And then when we take that, the assessment from them, we ensure that whoever we interview, their assessment marries up with exactly what the hiring manager is looking for, so that you know that they're the right kind of person for the team that you want to put them onto. And then obviously with the cognitive assessments, this enables you to make sure that you are bringing on the best individuals who can really meet or exceed the expectations of the role or the company. You want to ensure that you've got the best of the best. And their speed to learn and cognitive ability are very important to make sure that they will pick up the training quickly and really hit their sales numbers as soon as possible. Human analytics and these personality assessments are really key predictors of training success and job performance across all industries, not just software sales, but heavy industry. Wherever you're looking for a sales individual, you really want them to tie up to what your hiring manager is looking for to ensure that they will succeed in their team. And now we're going to talk about speed to hire, and this is very, very important to make sure that you don't allow the process to drop. Recruitment can be quite a slow process if you let it be, from getting approval to hire, to headcount, to writing a job description, advertising the vacancy, engaging headhunters, reviewing candidate CVs, all the interviews. Momentum can really stall. And what you thought would be a couple of weeks process ends up taking months, and often by which time you've lost your ideal sales candidate to a competitor because they've been able to move that little bit more quickly. It's important to have formal structure when managing the hiring task, so the paperwork and the people and the diaries, but it's really important to recognise that when the right candidate comes along, you must act fast. When you've had the interview, let them know it was a positive meeting. Outline the next steps to make sure that you're keeping that candidate motivated and really hot for the role. Make sure that they're always in the loop. Candidates and great candidates really react adversely to everything going quiet. They'll think that you've got a disjointed company and that you don't value their time or care about what they've got to offer. And they may even share this opinion with others. So make sure that you keep the lines of communication open. If you find a good candidate, tell them. Speed up the remainder of the process if possible to show them that you're really serious. Don't prevaricate with third and fourth interviews because you feel you need to. If you feel that they're the right person, move quickly through the processes, get a presentation done to ensure that they can do what they say they can do, but you need to move quickly so that you can hire the person and get your dream candidate. You need to show your company's agile and entrepreneurial. Act fast, hire fast, or else you're going to lose what could be a really, really exceptional employee. So finally, you can use experts to help you bring in the right kind of people. Many organizations have in-house recruiters that are employed for the purpose of finding and qualifying new candidates for the organization. They will identify potential candidates and interview them before they're brought in before the hiring manager. One of the things with this, though, is that they won't have specific expertise in each different area. So working with in-house recruiters, make sure that you've got the right kind of person for the role that you're looking to bring on board. So if they've got experience in sales roles, really use them for your sales roles. Then you'll make sure that they're highlighting exactly what is the right thing that you're looking for to the candidates and making sure that the candidates are the right people for you. They are often spread very thinly because they're working over various different functions and various levels of seniority. So it's really a case of working smart with them and making sure that you're using the best people for the role you have. If you don't have the in-house recruiters, recruitment agencies are the most common people used for finding candidates for junior to mid-level areas. Recruitment agencies don't work on an exclusive relationship with the client, and they operate on a contingency basis, so they're paid whenever they successfully place an individual. They'll typically utilize their database, advertise on job boards, potentially put out adverts through their LinkedIn profiles and their website to attract candidates that are already looking. They will phone screen these candidates and produce a shortlist for the clients, which they'll send on. They will work on several different jobs at the same time, and they often prioritize the vacancies that they feel are easiest to fill. In terms of most recruitment agencies, they do work to usually a 20% success basis. We can pride ourselves at InsideSalespeople.com on working to a 50% success rate on these typical agreements, which is definitely above market average, significantly above market average. And we do offer a service that will send through completed profiles, and we will obviously try and interview people face-to-face wherever we can. We have an extensive network of people within inside sales because that is the area that we focus on, so we're not pulled in too many different directions. And finally, we've got search, often referred to as headhunting or retained search. It's highly recommended for senior management positions or roles that are really difficult to find resource for. A search firm is retained by the client on an exclusive arrangement. They're paid in different stages, paid up front, often paid upon shortlisting and presentation of the candidates, and then finally when they have successfully placed someone within the firm, they complete market research so that they can really share what is out there with the and find the right kind of candidates for them. They target specific companies where there is a real tie-up with your organization. They approach candidates. So this is a real difference. They are looking and attracting the best candidates in the market, not just ones that are looking for a career move. So they really are finding people that their skill set matches exactly what you're looking for. They'll also help an organization by providing salary benchmarking advice and help you work on the job description to make sure that you are attracting the right kind of people. They are highly successful. I mean, the average is an 85% success rate on assignments. We actually have an executive search sister company called Earhart Executives, and we can proudly say that we work to 100% of all assignments. We ensure that we always get the role filled. And if you've got any management positions that you need help on, please do give me a call and I will be able to help you with that. But just summarizing everything that we've talked about, as I've repeated over and over again, it's really important to set your company apart from others. You have to really highlight the culture and the opportunities within your organization. When you find the right kind of person, move quickly on hiring them. The people these days do have many different choices that they can move to, and they want to move quickly and to be inspired. So, yeah, speed, act fast. Engage and inspire your candidates that you're working with. Make sure that they really know exactly what you're about and how they can flourish within your organization. And finally, use experts to cut time and costs. Although there may be an initial outlay on using such things as search companies or recruitment agencies, they will really, really shorten the time that you spend on the recruitment process and take away some of that from your hiring managers and your HR function, and make sure that you pinpoint exactly the right kind of people to come into your organization and really excel. And now it's over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Some great advice there. I'd just like to remind the audience to write any questions that they might have in the Q&A box provided within the console, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can at the end of the session. So, in order to maximize upon the time and resource you've put into hiring, it's essential to keep retention as high as possible. Now, there are a few challenges that salespeople see which are actually avoidable and addressable, which can make salespeople more successful and more likely to stay within the business. And so one of these is the fact that only 33% of the time is actively selling. The rest of the time they're doing admin, that they're kind of updating records in Salesforce or Dynamics or whatever CRM they have. They're just not being productive. And so it's a real challenge for businesses to determine how they can make their salespeople more productive. And indeed, of the deals that they do work on, only 50% of their time is on the deals which actually close. The rest of the time they're spending on the deals which are probably less likely to close, but they're putting that extra bit of effort into them anyway because they think they need more care and attention. And what actually they need to do is just prioritize the deals which have the highest chance of closing. And as a result of these kind of factors, only 57% of salespeople hit their quota this year. And as a result of that, there's an annual turnover within sales organizations of around 30%. Now that can be hugely costly, as we discussed earlier, in terms of resource and time, and indeed the lack of coverage in terms of quota as well, as sales reps are on ramp. In addition to those more traditional concerns that a salesperson may have with regards to retention and staying within a role, namely hitting quota and being able to sell, millennials, who are going to make up 50% of the workforce by 2020, also have other concerns and other things which they look out for within an organization. So millennials really want to use technology. And in a recent Dell study in conjunction with Intel, they determined that 82% of millennials say technology influences their decision to accept or reject a job. And in addition to that, 42% of millennials say they would quit their job if they felt that technology failed to keep up. Now, these are, quite staggering if you think about it, those kind of factors would influence so strongly that their decision to stay or indeed accept a job. But it's just the kind of the new realities that employers are facing right now. In addition to that, millennials are actually very collaborative and entrepreneurial. They want to win, but they're prepared to work together as a team to achieve it. It's less dog eat dog. They also prefer to self-manage. Now, this is probably bad news for sales managers or indeed just managers generally who really like to, I wouldn't say micromanage, but have a firm grip on their organization. But millennials typically prefer to self-manage and have managers who aren't too overbearing. In addition to this, they prefer to follow non-linear workflows. Basically, they want to innovate. They don't want to just follow the cookie-cutter method. They want to be entrepreneurial, which kind of links back into that second point I made. So these are things which are really quite interesting, and I should say these were identified by Forrest in one of their recent reports. And so this is something which fed into the thinking that we had as an organization at Inside Sales as to what the sales tools for the future will look like. And with this in mind, the clever folk here at Inside Sales decided to do some research into the sales process themselves. Now, they spent over 1,000 hours interviewing different types of sales roles. They flew all over the world, and they came up with some really interesting stuff. And eventually, they mapped out over 3,000 sales processes, and this basically enabled them to identify the kinds of technologies and trends and workflows that modern salespeople are following at the moment. And this basically led them to understand that millennials and indeed other generations which are being influenced by millennial behaviors are now working all across the web. They're not working in just one particular application. So they're not just getting in first thing in the morning and just entering into their CRM system, whether it's Salesforce or Microsoft or Sugar or whoever it is, and just staying in there. They're actually going to Forbes, they're going to Zoom Info, they're going to Crunchbase, they're going to LinkedIn. They're working all across the web in order to find out the type of people they should be contacting, discovering all the information they should be, and really using the resources that the web has to offer in order to make themselves more effective. The only trouble with this is that actually this kind of behavior is actually quite unproductive. And if you think back to that 33% number in terms of the amount of time that salespeople are actually selling, this is the kind of behavior which will impact upon that, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just making them pretty unproductive. So as a result, they create playbooks. So Playbooks is a browser-based sales acceleration platform which uses the power of AI to help reps prioritize and target the best leads. The Playbooks panel sits within the browser, where we know the majority of reps work and operate, and is always on hand to help guide reps' behavior. So, for example, if you're on Crunchbase and you saw a company which you thought was a great prospect for you, you could simply go to the Playbooks panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen there, and search for that company, and it will present up all of the company information, such as when it was founded, the number of employees, the annual turnover, and it will also present you with the leads that it thinks you should follow up with from that company. So it will tell you who to contact, how to contact them, and when to reach out, all without switching between tabs. It's just there in the browser. And you can even email and dial out directly from Playbooks right there, without having to switch between CRMs, without having to go to any other web pages. It just sits there within the browser as the web operates. So it will be able to tell you who to sell to, which companies, which people. It will tell you how to engage with them. So not just phone and email, but also through social engagements and other tactics. So, whether it's text or something. It will tell you what to say. So beyond just, you can contact X, it will say, they're in this type of role. So perhaps this type of conversation or this course of line of inquiry will be best. And also tell you, really importantly, when to engage, because not all times of the day are created equally, unfortunately. So based upon the demographic of the particular lead, it will tell you when best to contact them and with which method. And this is all in an effort to help prioritize the efforts of the rep. All of these decisions and all of these bits of advice for the rep come from our AI engine, which is Neurolytics. So Neurolytics is a huge database worth of over 100 billion sales interactions, which have been collected from over 25 million companies and over 10 billion different sales profiles. And so the whole idea of this is that we get the balance between prioritization and the activity. And so we want to give the reps the best chance and spend the most amount of time going after the right people, rather than going after accounts or people which we, based upon our huge database of sales interactions, we can advise that the best course of action. And what we want to avoid is reps spreading their effort across all the leads, regardless of how good they are. I mean, leads are not created equally. Reps will try and cherry pick out the best ones, which they have a gut feel about, or they'll just peanut butter their effort across all the leads and treat them all equally. This kind of behavior inevitably leads to poor results. And actually, we know that the best leads close at 10 times the rate of your worst leads. And so we really want to emphasize the prioritization with the activity, as I said in the last slide, in order to drive the best results. And so we've built the application of AI, so we know which leads are best to go for first, but we can't necessarily rely on the reps to follow that up. So what we've done, we've actually built that application of AI into playbooks, meaning reps don't have to choose to use the intelligence, but it's seamlessly integrated into their day-to-day activity. So it will tell reps the right time to follow up and with what method. It's kind of a no-brainer for them. So it will say to a rep, follow up with an email at 10 a.m. Done. Bang. They can just get it done without having to choose or indeed think about it. So we're giving them the highest chance of success by integrating AI and intelligence into the sales process. And the net result of all this is that sales reps sell more. By combining data and science, we can enable reps to prioritize the right accounts with the right contacts and prescribe the correct activity for them to do at the right time in order to get the best result. Now, this is great news for reps because they end up selling more, they end up hitting their quota, they end up smashing their quota and getting the bonuses and going on the club trips that they want. And that ultimately makes them happy and less likely to leave the company. And from a business's point of view, obviously great that they're selling more. And we know that companies which utilize this kind of technology can see uplifts in revenue of up to 30%, which is great for them in that respect, but also that the companies are able to retain their staff. And as we discussed earlier in the presentation, this kind of thing is hugely costly in terms of time and resource. And so this is really a win-win for both the companies and the reps which work for them. And so, just to quickly summarize, from a hiring perspective, you need to set your company apart, you need to move quickly, you need to engage and inspire candidates, and use experts to cut out some of the time and cost. And from a retention point of view, you need to understand that the workforce is changing. The millennial generation have different expectations in terms of the length of tenure and also what kind of technologies and behaviors that they want to see in the workforce. And that they have different workflows and expectations, and that you can actually utilize data science and AI to sell more, which ultimately leads to further success for the company and the reps, and also will mean greater retention in the long run, which both saves resource and time. So with that, I think we can move on to the Q&A.
Great. So yeah, it looks like we've had a number of questions come throughout the webinar. So I guess we'll dive straight into these. There's one for you here, Sophie. It says, is there a particular personality type that suits the inside sales profession?
Well, you would think so, and certainly there are specific behavioural traits that tend to lend themselves to an inside sales role. So someone that's a great communicator, certainly outgoing, various different things tend to run through most inside sales roles. But it is also very different according to the organisation that is hiring and indeed the sales manager under which the person will be working under, because different people expect different things from their teams. So that's why at InsideSalespeople.com we employ human analytics, because we really get to pinpoint exactly the right kind of person to sit at a desk in your organisation. So when we're first engaged by a company, we work with the team manager and HR, and we actually ask them to fill out a personality indicator test that will say, really highlight what they're looking for. So they fill it out in terms of what they're looking person. So whenever we then look for somebody to work within that organisation, we make sure that every point of their personality fits to what the hiring manager and HR and effectively the organisation are looking for. But yeah, it is usually there is a certain element that runs through most salespeople, but it is definitely varies from organisation to organisation. Hence why we find it invaluable working with our customers to get them to complete human analytics assessments so that we can pinpoint the right people and make sure that we build a very successful inside sales team for them. I hope that makes sense.
It does indeed. It does indeed. So we have had another question. I think this one's more directed at me. So how does the artificial intelligence work at InsideSales.com? Well, to give you a brief answer to that, basically the AI consists of three things. It consists of maths, data, and application. So the surprising thing about AI is that the maths part of it isn't new. Right the way back in 1959, we had the kind of mathematical algorithms to enable machine learning and computer programs to kind of play checkers, which is something Arthur Samuel did back at IBM. The problem with that at that point in time is that we just didn't have the data to kind of fuel the algorithms and the maths. But over the last few years, with the explosion of kind of bits of technology such as Fitbits or the internet and all manner of technology, we're actually creating a huge amount of data. And according to IBM, we have created 90% of the world's data in just the last 2 years. So the combination of having the mathematics and the huge quality and quantity of data that we have now enables us to make really quite detailed and accurate predictions. And here at InsideSales.com, we have a database of about 108 billion sales interactions, which we've passively crowdsourced and anonymized through our kind of our customer base. And what that enables us to do is really deliver, as I say, accurate and detailed predictions around the sales process. And while the predictive nature of AI is very important, what you actually do with those predictions is equally as important. So that leads us on to the application of it. And without the application of it, you get this phenomenon of no-lift AI. So, you can provide a prediction, but if you don't do anything with it, it's kind of almost useless. And so what we've done at InsideSales.com is we've integrated the neurolytics and the prediction output that we give into the product, so it becomes a part and parcel of the day-to-day workflows of salespeople. So they don't even know they're using it, but we tell them, who to go ask at what particular point with what type of communication, and that's built into their workflows. But it's using AI and that kind of predictive intelligence. Okay, so one more question for you, Sophie. How important is it for companies to sell themselves during an interview process?
It's absolutely very important. It's key to things, really, because at the moment we're very much in a candidate-driven market, so people are looking at various options. And when I, as a recruiter inside Salespeople.com, approach candidates with regards to roles, I need to be really armed with information, not just about the role, but about the organisation, about how, the culture within that organisation, various different things that employees are really looking to make sure that they're making the right move, that they're going to be comfortable, that they're going to be able to grow. So it's important that a company really, really promotes exactly how they're going to look after their employees, how they're going to help them grow, the training that they're going to give them, everything that will help them flourish, and indeed will help the company flourish as well, because obviously those people are going to be adding to the bottom line at the end of the day. But yeah, very, very important that a company has really outlined and highlighted exactly where it's winning and what they can offer for a potential employee.
Okay, great. So that's actually all we have time for today, unfortunately. The rest of the questions that have been asked, we'll try and address those after the webinar today in the follow-up. But this webinar will actually be available on demand within 24 hours, so I encourage you to go and look online at InsideSales.com for that. A huge thank you to you today, Sophie. It was fantastic input and really insightful. So thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure.
And no problem. It was great to have you here. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more about the sales process and inside salespeople going forward. So yeah, with that, I will say thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.